Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second day of our BC TechDays. Your first speaker for today is Andrzej.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all. I hope that you had a nice evening yesterday. Probably a very long one. I unfortunately had to prepare. So welcome on my session about quality and readability of the code. So before I start, let's just introduce myself. So my name is Andrzej Zwierzchowski, very hard to pronounce in some countries. I'm working currently as a development standard lead at the Enough People. Before I was working in that company in the product department. And probably if you are seeing this slide, you are thinking, that company is not very good in choosing names. Choosing the name that follows the product, that's not a good idea. But that's just the name we're using in marketing. We have another proper name that is completely immune to Microsoft ideas of changing product names. It's Vetback Limited. So if they only haven't moved the office. So that's where I work. I'm a developer. I develop in a few different languages, a bit of C#, a bit of CAL sometimes, and IL, and sometimes I'm also doing some JavaScript or TypeScript development. I'm the author of the AZL DevTools extension for VS Code, so if you are using, that's great. If not, try it. I have a Twitter account if you want to just look here. Maybe not many posts, but I'm trying sometimes to post something here. And I have a blog. That one was updated a very long time ago because, if I have to choose, if I want to write in C# or AL or in English, then, well, I'm going for C# and TypeScript or AL usually. So, so that's me. Now, the subject. That was probably a bit bad choice for a very long subject. And what I wanted to do today, I wanted to talk about extensions that people are creating in our community. Extensions for VS Code that can help us develop. But I didn't want to talk about every extensions and every function because it would probably be very boring for all of you. So I wanted to choose a subject and then try to find the functions in those different extensions that could fit into the subject. So talk about readability or maintainability of our extensions, and if there is something interesting in one extension, then I would like to point you to that one, and not only extensions, something to things that Microsoft is doing or what people in the community are doing. So it's mainly extensions. So that's what I wanted to do. I know that some of the subjects may seem obvious, but not all people know those things, so I wanted to talk about those things. And we have different cases, different situations, so maybe there will be something that you will learn, or maybe you have no time to follow the rules, but maybe you will find a tool that can help you to do that. Okay, so quality and readability. Why I wanted to talk about it. First, the code is not only something that we're giving to our customers that will do something for them, that's also something for us, for our other developers in our team, that they will need to modify the extension. They will need to go inside, change the code. So let's make it easier for other people or for ourselves in a month or 3 months to read and be able to modify it. And also we have to remember that usually we are reading code more than really writing it. And usually we're analyzing, thinking. So this reading to writing ratio is greater than 10 to 1. So let's make our life easier. And also, we are part of the team, so let's try to help our friends in the office work efficiently and make their life easier. Yeah. Another thing that I have here is anybody should be able to fix or extend our code. It's better to have something less perfect, less optimal, but easy to read. So it's not you that is constantly fixing your own code, but you can pass it to somebody else and you can focus on other things. And we have to remember that but code can slow us down. So at the beginning, we don't have much code. We are working fast. Everything is great. And in time, when our code base grows, we realize that any change is taking longer and longer and longer because we have a lot of things to consider. We are afraid that we break something. So it's better to have something readable, easy to modify. Okay, so what really can help us with our development jobs? First, we should be using source control. Probably a very obvious thing. That's a tool, but what we are doing, we sometimes have customers that have their own developers, and they would like to, together with upgrading the system from CAL to AL, they need to learn how to develop because they have 1-2 developers doing maybe reports, maybe some very simple modifications. And sometimes with customers, which is to us, and earlier they have contractors, and when we talk with them, they were not using source control. They have no idea what it is. So yeah, so I'm mentioning it here. If there is anybody that is not using it, then maybe it's time to switch. And we should educate also our customers if they have developers, somebody that source control is something that you need because it helps you also with readability of your code. Another thing that really can help us, which is not an extension, is the development guidelines and patterns website. That's something that is important because if we know the patterns, then if you know the pattern, then it's easy to understand the code. You look at the code. Okay, I know the pattern. I know what it is. I don't need explanation what somebody is doing it. Yeah? And also, if you need to implement something, you're not reinventing the wheel. You go to the pattern, you apply it. Everybody understands it, or should understand it, and code is better. So AL guidelines.dev. That's the website that you should go. It's community run and Microsoft endorsed. That's what is on this website. Go there, read the patterns, and use them. So that's tool outside of VS Code. But we also have other stuff directly in VS Code. We have code analyzers, those few code analyzers from Microsoft that help us analyze the code and see if something is not right. But we also have a community code analyzer made by Stefan Maroń. That's a fantastic tool. You can also install it, that VS Code extension. You can find in Marketplace, install it, and it adds a few additional checks. And if you need another one, probably it's easier to create a pull request on the Stefan's GitHub, and maybe he will be faster. Yeah? Microsoft has a lot of things to do that might not be the priority to other code analyzers, but here this one is just a community-created one, and maybe you want to create a pull request, maybe you want to add something yourself to this code analyzer, and then you will get faster result, faster analyzer that could help you inside your company to have better code. And then we have VS Code extensions that are extending the functionality of VS Code. So we can have the snippets, we can have some commands that can do something about code. We can have code actions that will make our development faster. And also we can have some additional panels displaying some information, helping us to analyze the code. So when you want to analyze what is happening here, you just download a new repository. It's the first time you're seeing it, you would like to check what is going on. Some of the extensions can also help you to analyze what's there. So those are all the things that we can have. But now it's time to start talking about code, what we can do. First, before I go into any examples, I want to talk about the setup, because I found interesting case when I was looking at one of the repositories some time ago. So in VS Code, we have two types of settings, or two places where VS Code stores settings. The user settings that are kept inside the user folder, and we have workspace settings. And obviously, everybody has some preferences about colors, how they prefer the development environment look and feel. So that's probably that's probably the place for those settings is your user settings. It's just for you. But if you have settings related to your project, to your solution, then they should travel together with your code. Because to make sure that every developer that will open that project, they will be working in the same environment, the result of their work will be the same. Because you may have rules for file naming, you may have some rules for running some actions when you save the files, and you don't want to have a mess because some developers have different settings and other developers have different, and then it's really getting messy. So that's the place for those settings is the workspace settings, which are inside this .vs code folder in the settings.json file. And the last point here is keep workspace setting in the source control. That's what I found. I found a project where a developer had the settings, but put settings.json into git ignore. So he probably missed the point. That's not the place where, that's not what you should be doing. If you don't want to share your settings, that's not the place where you keep them. So remember about it. Okay, so that's about settings. Some simple things, just remember why each of those exists. Next one. That's a very simple subject, magic numbers. Magic number, what is magic number? This is something that I hate. Magic number is value with unexplained meaning. So you open the code, you see numbers here, there, and you have no idea what they mean. And Robert Martin, or Uncle Bob, in his Clean Code book said that it breaks one of the oldest rules of programming. So please, don't break the oldest rule of programming. That's not right. And it's, for example, when you use enums, you should be using enums. So if you're not using them, if you're using numbers, like in this example here, where I have a function, I have some numbers in the case. That's probably the developer that developed that was using this str menu function and get integers from it, and then decide, okay, let's move code to the function. But if functions goes 3 code units deeper, then at that level we don't know what it is, and in a month somebody will find the function, nice function, I will use it for something else, and then we start calling it with the number hard-coded probably somewhere, and then you have no idea what's going on there. So magic numbers are not very good, and magic numbers are sometimes in the project everywhere. And we have those magic numbers in code, but sometimes we have also magic numbers in emails, like somebody sent us email with just task number from a project management system, but that's not something that we can do with VS Code, but that's also another example of annoying magic numbers. Okay, next thing about magic numbers. Hard-coded object IDs. That's bad. You're looking at the code and what's going on here? What that person was calling. So do not hard-code object IDs. Just assign that ID and forget about it. I don't want you to remember. I remember the discussion long time ago when we started working with AL, and we have a meeting, and one of the developers said, I want to see numbers because people in my project knows objects by their IDs. I don't want you to know that. Forget about it. Yeah, I don't want you to see it anywhere. So yeah, use the system enum types like database or report instead of those like integers. And you can also detect those problems if you want. Yeah? You can run Stefan in his Business Central intercom. There is a rule that will check that that's a number. So you can enable it, and then you will see how many problems you have. And then it's like, I have a problem, what I can do about it? It probably takes time to fix it. So we will have to stay with it because we have a budget, we don't have time. But no, you don't have to. And in my extension, there is a function, convert object IDs to names. You can run it, it's probably 5 seconds, it can go through all your project, through every file, and in the places where it can detect that that's integer here, that's a parameter, that's object ID here, so it will replace it with the proper database report or page and the name of it. So your code will be more readable, then you will be able to renumber it if you want. And in the next version of Business Central, if you take a look at what's new, what will be new, Microsoft promised that we'll be finally able to use those enums also in the properties on the object. So the last place that currently is stopping us completely from using IDs, all the properties or maybe links between pages where now we still have to hardcode object ID. If we have a table with object ID field, it will be gone. We'll be able to finally have proper, very nice names. And the last thing here, as I said, do not forget about IDs, so do not reserve them yourself manually. Do not take the first one that is free. Don't do it. Just use any solution that is available for reserving those IDs. You may have your own. Maybe you already developed one. Maybe you want something very special. You can do that. But if you don't have time, if you want something that works, go for AL Object ID Ninja from Vieco. You just install it and it works. So 10 seconds and you're ready to go. Go for it. Just you don't know anything, install it. That's the way to go. And last thing here, hard-coded object IDs using object IDs in the file names. Don't do that. Don't do that. We had a discussion, as I said at the beginning, years ago, and half of the team at that time, coming from Cal, said, we want object IDs in file names because we are reserving them this way, and we can see those IDs. People remember object by number. Said, no, you won't get it. And as a compromise at the end, what we did, we put the object ID at the end of the name, so where they were not able to order those files by ID, but yet you have your IDs. And that team that was shouting that they want IDs was the first one that switched to Microsoft ways of naming because they learned that, you are right, we don't need those numbers anywhere. So, and then we switched to Microsoft rules because, finally we can. And nobody wants to have those numbers. And how to do it? Use Valdo extension. Thank you, Valdo. Use those settings. There is also a command. You can just open your project type, configure best practice, file naming. It will add the settings, and you're ready to go. Remember, it should go to workspace settings, and it should go to your source control, so everybody will have those names because the default one is not this one, and you don't want it. So do it. And now, next slide, demo about object IDs. So let me switch to the okay, let's switch to the other screen, and time for some demo. So I have empty project here without anything. First thing what I would like to do, I want to make sure that I have proper naming before I create any object. So I have that settings opened. Let's go here and commands. And I have configure best practice file naming. I press enter, and it should start and should ask me about. Oh, sorry. Once again, best practice file naming. First question: if I want to use user or workspace settings, definitely workspace. Maybe we should hide the user. So I will press enter, and if I go to the settings, I have it. Yeah. I have those settings in the file. I also have the on-save file action to reorganize. You can have reorganize and rename. There is a discussion what is the best choice. People that are against the reorganize don't like the fact that it creates folder per object type. And if you look at the Microsoft code, they are keeping objects grouped with functionality in the folders. But if you have a lot of people, a lot of developers working on this project, and you're afraid that each of them will have different ideas how to group files together, then instead of having long discussions, violent discussions, how it should be done, maybe you can just switch to reorganize and forget about the problem. Maybe it won't be the perfect solution, but it will work. So that's the setting. And now the second thing that I want to do, I want to create a new code unit and or any object and show you how the Zwierzchowski ID Ninja works. So I will just create a new file. BC code unit AL, and let's use snippet. T code unit. Yeah, first I will press Control space here. Now it tries to connect to the internet to get the ID. That's interesting. I should see it. And it was working before. Not now. What's going on? Once again. Control space. Yes. Yeah, so again, what I have here, I have two IDs. I have one from, first one is from AL Object ID Ninja. Second one is from Microsoft Extensions. But I want to use the first one generated by Zwierzchowski extension and keep and his extensions keeps the mappings somewhere in the cloud so everybody in the team can use it. So I'll go for this one. I will also rename the code unit. Maybe not the best name, but doesn't matter. And I will save it. And sorry, too much typing. And I will save it. Yeah, saved. And as you can see, the file name has changed, and it follows Microsoft best practices. So that's how you can make sure that you have proper names and that you are reserving the IDs. And if you want to know more, just install. If you're not using Zwierzchowski extensions, but you want to have something, install this one. Take a look at it. It's great. So that's the first example that I have, but I also have another one. When I want to show you fixing the problems. So that's the piece of code that I have. Very bad one with numbers everywhere. I have code unit ID here. I have number here. I was surprised when I first time saw it. I don't believe that it can be done. But yes, you can specify numbers next to data types. That was a surprise for me, how people can be creative. Yeah, so here, and also I have report run, and I selected something that I have no idea what it is. It exists, but yeah, I'm looking at this code, and okay, 80 I know what 80 is. People remember, but this one no. So I would like to fix it. I would like to make sure that I know what is happening here. So I will go to the commands, and I will run the command that will convert object IDs to names. So I have two versions of this command. One is just for a current editor. Second one is for the whole project. So if you have a project that you want to upgrade in very bad usage of those numbers, then run the one for the project, but I will run just the one for the editor just to show you what happens inside a single file. So let me run it. It runs, and that's the result. Yeah? So I no longer have those numbers. I have proper size post code unit here. I have here the number, the record item I have. And now I finally know what I'm calling here. Yeah? It's return order confirmation. Okay, fine. So somebody put it here. So yeah, so that's what you can do with your object IDs. Yeah. And one thing, I just reverted the change because I forgot to show you that I can see warnings below each of those numbers. Yeah, I can see these yellow lines below, and if I take a look here, I have a warning with LC005 here. So those are the warnings coming from the linter code, from Stefan's code analyzer. Yeah, I enable it here in the settings, and it shows me what is wrong with this code. So yeah, so that's the demo. Let's switch back to the presentation. Next thing, procedures. Yeah. So what about procedures? The rule that you probably saw everywhere is procedures should be small. Yes, they should. And they should be doing one thing. And the question is what that one thing means. And different people have different opinions what that single thing, or that one thing means. But one interesting opinion was from Robert C. Martin, that for him the one thing means that you cannot extract another procedure from the existing procedure. And here we have interesting solution from David Fieldhoff in his AL code actions extension, because he implemented extract procedure. So we have it now. Thank you, David, if he's here. Now we have something that help us follow the rules. Obviously, I would probably apply a bit of common sense, and I would not start splitting 4 lines of code into procedures. Just maybe that will be too much, too extreme. But the rule is, if you can extract a sub-procedure from a procedure, that might be a good idea to do it. And also, another rule about procedures is that the name should explain the functionality. Obvious thing, you should be looking at the names and you know what is happening. And if you start extracting procedures, then you will have some high-level procedure explaining the process, and inside you have a calls to maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 procedures, but they will really explain what is happening deeper. And if you're analyzing the code, you don't have to go so deep. Maybe you will finish the analysis of that code, trying to understand what is happening here at much higher level, instead of going line by line and trying to understand what this half of screen is doing, or what those three screens of code are doing. And don't be afraid of renaming procedures. You can press F2 in VS Code on the procedure or on the variable, type a new name, and it goes through whole solution and renames it everywhere where the procedure is referenced. So don't be afraid, because I heard some people think, it's hard to rename because then I have to go through whole code and do it. No, F2 and it will do it for you. Okay, so quick demo, extract procedure. So let me first switch to VS Code and open my example here. I have very simple piece of code, probably will think, that's enough. But it will be good as an example to show you what we can do. So what it's doing, it's increasing prices on the order. Yeah, so it applies a filter and then goes in the loop, and then on every line changes the unit price. But we could extract the procedure, because if you look at it, it's filter, go through the records, and then for every record do something. So let's just select the first part, which is filtering, and I can click on this bulb after I select the code, and I can choose extract the procedure. Now I can type a new name of the procedure, so I will put the name filter lines, and I press enter. Now I have just a single line here and a new local procedure. Yeah, local is important here. Then I have a second part. Now I should follow it, because if you leave it at this stage, it looks a bit uncomfortable for me, because I have coded 2 different levels here. Yeah? So let's try to keep all the calls in this procedure at the same level. So I will filtering, and then I will be processing all records. Not filter, and then I'm going deeper just next to it. So another extract procedure, and then I will call it process all lines, and I will press enter. So now it goes through all lines. And if you noticed before I had a variable here which is gone and now has been moved here, because there's no reference to this variable in the original function, so we don't want to have unused variables in code. So another great thing of this functionality, it picks the variables and moves them to those lower levels. Yeah, so that's what I have. And I still may think, maybe I will still extract it, because it's not doing one thing here. It's going through the records and then processing a single one. So again, let's select that one and go again for extract procedure, and I will call it process single line. I press enter. Sorry. Yeah, I pressed wrong key and it exit. But yeah, but in general, that's the. Actually, yeah, I can press F2 and I can rename it quickly. Press enter here. You see, it has been changed here and also here. So a second and it's fine. So that's how you can quickly extract procedure without really copy code, moving it, and be careful to not trying to break anything. Okay, so that was the demo. Next slide. Yeah, here, and the next one. So you started extract procedure, and you have a lot of them. But there may be a problem if you do it manually. There is a problem. There is something, if you browse the internet, you might find some articles about Hiram's law. And what it is, he wrote that with a sufficient number of users of an API, it doesn't matter what you promise in the contract, all observable behaviors of your system will be depended on by somebody. Yeah, here's the URL where you can find it. And also, if somebody is quoting it, he wanted also to put that picture. Yeah, changes to version 10.17. The CPU no longer overheats when you hold down spacebar. And the issue, somebody logged in. The update broke my workflow. My control key is hard to reach, so I hold spacebar instead, and I configure Emacs to interpret a rapid temperature rise as control. Well, that's what happens here. Whatever this law goes deeper than making something public and then not being able to refactor code because somebody depends on that. But that shows that you should be careful, yeah. But just not make too much stuff public. So when you are refactoring, make those methods local. If you want to create event publishers, also be careful. Yeah, that's what I have on the next slide. Yeah, so use local procedures. Maybe think about facade patterns to hide your implementation, to be able to easily modify it later, to avoid situations. No, you cannot change it because we have a lot of references to that. Maybe you should consider using interfaces. You can use interface wizard from my extension, or there is a code action create interface there. So you can have a code unit with public methods. You can use it, and you create the interface which you can use later instead of that. And when you are designing your event publishers, be careful. Yeah, don't create too many of them, or you can create as many as you want, but maybe think if it's better to create event publisher that the idea of publishers comes from the process, not from implementation. Don't create event publishers for every procedure because you want those procedures to be extendable. It's because you have private procedure, you don't want anybody to see it, and then you are creating event publishers like on begin and the end from this local one, and now it's kind of public. Maybe nobody can call it directly, but there is publisher that tells everybody there is such a procedure. And if you have a new requirement from the customer, you want to change your code, that procedure no longer makes any sense, but somebody subscribed to it, and then you have a problem. So be careful with that. And one more interesting thing about power of this conference, I said consider using interface and mention interface wizard and create interface. When I was sitting yesterday in this room, when David was showing the create interface, he showed the create interface code actions. And I look at it and, I didn't know about that. So yeah, I learned something that I created. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, a show demo. So let me switch quickly to VS Code. I still have the same code that I showed just before, and now I said, okay, let's make an interface quickly that will implement public methods from this code unit, or that will have public methods from this code unit. So then I will everywhere use the interface to hide completely the implementation, to separate it. So the option that I learned yesterday from David is that I can use my own actions from here, and there is a create interface, and it will create interface. That's what he was showing yesterday. But there's also another option. I can just right-click somewhere here. I can use new wizard, and I can choose interface. And I will select the sales line update code unit that I created just a few minutes ago, and I can press finish. And yeah, I have the interface with just that single public method. The rest is not visible. So that's how you can extract if you have an idea that that single code unit is great with those functions, but you would like to create another one from something completely different. So let's create an interface, and then we'll implement completely different versions of our logic in another code unit, implementing exactly the same functions. So that's how you can quickly get those those interfaces created. Okay. Back to the demo. Next thing, avoid duplication. Yeah? So avoid duplicated code. Move duplicated code to a single procedure. Create the procedure that you call, because procedure is something that you should be calling, but I saw people that were treating procedures as a place, as a big bin from which you take code and put it somewhere else. So some people were working this way. So procedure, single procedure with the same code. You call it from different places. So then you will have one place with bugs, not 20. And we will be fixing it, and we will be fixing the bug everywhere for everybody, for every code calling this procedure, not just in a single place. So if you have procedures that are related, obviously group them in the code unit. And what about this duplication? Because if you open big project, you look at the code and you don't know how many duplicated procedures you have. So can we do something about it? Can we find it? I mean, yes, you can. So again, some time ago, I created this find duplicate AL code command in my extension because I was curious how much that kind of code we have in some of our projects. So this procedure, this command searches for exactly the same code, not similar one, because if I start searching for something similar, it will be slow. But searching for something that's exactly command to command, statement to statement the same is something that we can do really quickly in a really efficient way. Unfortunately, AL is that kind of language that sometimes we have duplicated code because variable type is different, but maybe the name is the same. So sometimes you want to do the same on parses and say size. So then the code can look very similar, and that's something that unfortunately we cannot avoid. But you can detect with this command if somebody just copied the functions from another code unit in this code, or if somebody copied 20 lines of code and now we have it into places. So a demo, quick demo about duplicated code. Let's switch the view and open the code that has duplicate. So I have extension. I have a bit of duplicated code here in a few places. Now, how I can detect that? I can run a command. So again, let's go to the commands palette, and it will be find duplicated AL code. Let's run it. It just asks just one question. How many the same statement you want to find? That's the minimum number that you want to analyze. The default is 3, but you may want to start for example, 10. Yeah, because the problem is that you will find a lot of set filters or set ranges in many places. Yeah, set range on everywhere in your system. You will have sales header dot reset sales header dot set range, like build to customer number or sell to customer number. So, so maybe you don't want to find it. Maybe you want to skip that. So let's go with 3. So run it, and I have it. Not very big solution. So it's very quick, but it should also be quick with the bigger project. So I have two duplicates. One is the whole method, and the second one is just a bit of code. Yeah, so first one has the same methods with 7 statements inside. Second have some 6 statements being exactly the same. Let's take a look at it. I can click on the first one, and it will open the file and select the same code. So you see, it's the whole procedure. And if I click on the second one, I'm going to another code unit and I have exactly the same procedure. So now I can start asking the questions, why this procedure has been copied to multiple places? Maybe if it was in some specialized code unit, maybe you need to create another one and just move that procedure to that one and use it in both places. Yeah. And the second case, it's just a bit of code. And yeah, it shows a bit of, maybe not a problem, but this is by design. That was my decision to make it fast. It's actually, if you take a look at this code, actually the same code. You could say that it's almost the same procedure. Yeah, this code below is also the same. The difference is this line here. But here I have just 2 statements, not 3, so it has not been found. And yeah, if I implemented something that finds similar code, then the result should be probably hold this piece of code, but it will be slow. Yeah, it should say, this whole piece of code is something like 99% the same. Maybe you should take a look at it, but just because of efficiency, I decided for something simple. It still should give you some result. It still should allow you to find those places when people were preferring to use copy and paste instead of calling the code or making it more generic. Okay, so that's the demo about finding duplicates. Let's go back to the slides. Next one, next subject that I have here is about variable names. So again, first line here is obvious. Variables names should reveal the intention. When you are looking at the code, you should be able to, from the variable name, understand why somebody is using it. It's not always the case. I saw a database, a customer database, where the developer was using proper names of the tables, but then was using ID of tables in the variable names. So it was variable T21 and so on. That was completely unreadable. Yeah, so it should really tell you what the variable name should really tell you what it is and why do you want it. But there is also another thing. You should avoid names that look similar. If you like to create very long names, but there is one letter difference between them, then it's very easy to start using the wrong one. Especially, for example, if you like to use that Hungarian notation and you will have P says header as a parameter, and inside the function you will have L says header as a local one, then it's very easy to start, using one of those and then suddenly have one line that is using another one. Just make that difference bigger. And again, you have F2 key that you can use to rename the variable if you think that there is a better name. Also, we have CodeCop from Microsoft that can detect problems, that suggests that you should use different naming, that the name should follow the variable names. It probably can be a problem if you have very long tables. It can be annoying that you have to type all those long variable names, and you may not remember the names. Yeah, and AL is not very good language in this area. Because you first type the variable name, and then you will have suggestion of the type. In languages like C#, for example, you first typing data type, so you can have IntelliSense, and then based on the data type that you selected, it can suggest you the name of the variable. Well, here you have to properly type it without any mistake, because that's the first thing that you're doing. Yeah, so that's unfortunately a problem with the language, but it's not the only one. The same is with SQL. You're writing SQL query, and then first you have to select fields, and then you're typing from which table. If you want to create a query that gets something from BC tables, that's hard. Yeah? We have very long names with spaces, and very long table names with spaces. So the question is there anything that can help us in this area? Just anything. And yes, there is. So there are a few extensions that can help you. There is add variable code actions in AL Navigator. There is very nice snippet in AL variable helper. And also, there is something that I have in my extension, but it's not public yet. When I was preparing to these presentations, I was playing with something, thinking how we can make our life easier when we need to type the variable name, and we would like to follow Microsoft rules. So that's something that I will release after the conference, because I don't want to break anybody's presentation. And when I'm ready, after the last session, or maybe tomorrow morning, I will release that new version of the extension with the last thing that I have here on this slide. But let's go for a demo and take a look at it. So creating variables. Let's see what we can do, how we can use all those extensions. So yeah, here is another project in VS Code. Just let's wait a moment until the AL language extension starts, and then we'll try to do something with those variables. Okay, so I have a code unit with some functions. So first case or first extension that we can use AL Navigator. So how does it work? It expects you that you just start typing your code. In your code, you will start using variable names. So I can start. I have a function called process sales order. So probably I would like to do something with sales headers. So I can start typing. And probably reset. That will be the first thing that I want to do. Now, I don't have a variable. I have an error here. But I can click on it. And in this bulb, I have a few code actions coming from AL Navigator. I can add a local variable, global, or a parameter. And let's go for local. And what will happen? It needs to start. Is it working or is it not working? Let me save the file and try again. Maybe I click run correctly. Add a local variable. And it's probably still. Come on. Do I need to save something? What about global? Yeah, global worked. So I have a global variable here. So what has happened? The function, like the command, analyzed the name of the variable and was able to find the table, the object that has this name. And then based on that, it suggested, okay, that should be probably, that's what you probably mean, and created the record variable. So that's one of the options that you can use. There is another one. There is a snippet. It was the record. And that's the AL variable helper. So if I select this one first it creates a snippet and stops at the place where I'm selecting the data type. So I can type sales, and then I have IntelliSense, so I can select it. Then I can just remove temporary, and then I can go. It goes to, when I press tab, it goes to the beginning, and then when I press Control Space, I can three options. I can use full name, short name, or just tag. And tag with just first letters from the data type. But let's go for full, and I have sales header. So that's something that will also help you. Yeah? You're first selecting from the list, then it will suggest variable type. But now let's just also take a look at those experiments that I'm doing during the weekend, trying to find a way if we can make it even easier. So I have a setting. I'll outline completion providers. Those are you can select a few providers that will suggest you code in a few situations. It's not ready yet. Yeah? So I can select, and currently if I press Control Space, I have 3 available. I can have some completions for the variable data type or for variable names. The last one are exactly the same with just a bit different behavior, so we can only select one of those. And I can choose, let's go for data types, because that's something separate. And there is variable names with data type. So I will select those ones, because I'm not sure which one is better, and maybe you don't want them at all. That's why it's in the setting, and by default it will be off. Or maybe maybe if I have a positive feedback, maybe I will some of those default. So currently data types and variable name with type. And let's go here. And now I can select var, and I can start typing sales, and I have sales header with data type, yeah? Because it suggests all possible variable names based on all available object types, and that's what I can select. So if I only want to have one single sales header variable in this function, then probably that's the best name, because Microsoft Code Analyzer will expect exactly the same name. So I can just press enter and I have it. Yeah, it's ready. I can also, thank you. I can start typing temp sales header, and I have temporary record. Less typing. Yeah, so I said it will be available in a few days. But I cannot suggest everything, so I can type like sales header, sales header buffer, and now I don't have IntelliSense, And now there is this second provider that I selected, the data type provider. So I can start typing record. And I have one here, again, says header. So I can press enter, and again, I have it. Yeah, so that's one, those are the options. And the thing that I'm not sure which is the best one is here. So there is another option, just variable name, which changes a bit the behavior. So now, I still have says header, but I don't have the data type. So I can select this one. But I still can use the second one. So still the same result, but it's up to you which one you prefer. If you want just to suggest variable names and then do the rest yourself, because there may be a case for this one. You can select says header, press enter, and that buffer. Yeah, so if you want to have some more complex names that have inside, that starts with the object name, then this option probably will be better for you. And now I can still go for record says header, and I have the variable. So yeah, so that's what I was trying to do to make our life easier. Okay, go back to the demo. Comments, another subject. I have two quotes from Kevin Henney from his presentation about 7 ineffective coding habits of many programmers, and from his Twitter. So first one is, he said on this YouTube, on this video, my experience, yeah, that's what he said, is that suggests that other human beings don't read comments and compiler don't read comments, so who are you writing them for? That's what he said, yeah, that nobody reads comments. Compiler definitely not, doesn't care what is there. And other developers first go to code trying to understand what is going on inside, and later if everything fails, then look at the comment, maybe it will suggest what it is doing. But comment may be a bit old, from 3 commits before. And also, the second tweet from him was, a common fallacy is to assume authors of incomprehensible code will somehow be able to express themselves lucidly and clearly in comments. And so we're expecting that people that write completely unreadable code, very messy and with very twisted logic, the explanation will be different, but probably will be the same. It will be just in English or another language. It won't help. So the question is, it looks like developers don't like comments, and if you read about it, everybody, no, comments are bad. Well, they are not. It's just we should use them properly. But watch this video. There is very interesting thing about that fits into this session, into the subject of this session. But I don't want to start any war here, because he said which indenting style is the wrong one. And his selection fits into it. And it has something to do with F2 key when you want to rename procedure. Very interesting. But I don't want to do it here, because that's one of those subjects that could trigger very violent discussion. The same like begin, end around single statement. Let's not go there. Okay, so the comments. Well, everybody is saying code should explain itself. You don't need a comment. But still need a comment if it adds value. And also, too much comments add a noise. And it's very hard to read code if you have a lot of noise. And that's where we coming to one of the first slides that I said you should be using source control. Because your code is not the place for putting your, for example, Jira task numbers. That should go into the commit. And in your code, you should talk about the code, about functionality, not about the time when that change happened, but rather what this code is doing. You should find it in your task management software, and maybe in a commit. And you should not leave commented out code. That's not what commented are for. Don't keep the metadata or old code inside your current code. Use source control. And also, comments should add a value. This one, not really. Find item price, find item price. Yeah, I mean, I know that I'm probably not sounding very convincing if you think about the functionality of adding tooltips to pages in my extension, because they are doing the same. Sorry for that. But yeah, the comment should add some value. So what could we do? How we can use comments? One thing that comments can be helpful, we have XML documentation now in AL. You type 3 slashes and it generates XML that you can populate with some explanation of your function. And then you can generate, using AL XML documentation extension, you can generate an MD documentation from it that you can give to somebody. Or when you are typing, using that functions, you can see in the suggestion, in the IntelliSense, you can see those explanations. But be careful. Yeah? This extension can generate this documentation, but the first thing I'm doing, I'm turning it off because it shows complete complaints that every function in my solution should have XML documentation. But on the previous slide, I said that comment should add value. So if the explanation, documentation for the function is obvious, doesn't make any sense, then you don't need XML comments. And I have to say that I made this mistake in the past. Yeah, the XML comments has been introduced to C# in 2005. When I saw it first time, now I will show you how to write documentation. And I made every mistake possible. I was never updating them, because they are not updated. So if I added parameter to function, well, the XML comments that I made was staying old. Never did that, because it's easy to generate it, but it's very hard to modify it. Yeah? There's really no suggestion. It's no generate one. You have to retype everything at that node manually. Very bad one. I never generate any documentation. Never. And nobody asks for it. So if you're ISV, if you think that it will help other partners to understand your code, if you want to have nice documentation that get generated, or you think that other partners extending your solution will benefit from this thing, that's a good idea to go. But if nobody will be reading it, don't build these huge decorators of your code that are in a different color when you're scrolling through it, just because you like the different, 7 lines of different code above every of your procedures. That's not going to help anybody. It will just make harder to read and a bigger code. So those are XML comments. Second thing are to-do comments. There is extension to-do tree, and this extension can find all to-do comments, and you can see them somewhere on the panel, which is a very good one. But if you have to do that stays in your code longer than probably a week or 2 or maybe a month, maybe it should disappear from the code and go as a task that you have to do in your system. To do probably should be something that I need to fix that code quickly before I create pull requests, before I push the solution back. If it's something for longer, then it's better to keep all things that we need to do in a single place, and we probably have some project management solution where it should go. Yeah, and I had a chat with Stefan Maron. Maybe we need a code analyzer that will detect to-dos, which will be disabled by default, because messages from code analyzers are very unstable. But if you have a pipeline, you can enable it, and if somebody is creating pull request, it can go through it and see, there's a to-do that probably should not go to the main branch because you haven't finished your work. Yeah, and if you want to keep that to-do because that's something for later, move it to maybe to the product management stuff, and our code will be without any to-dos. That's something that maybe we'll do in phase 2 of this project. And the last thing that I have here is mandatory comment next to commit. That's what Stefan has in his linter code. It will show you a warning that you have a commit inside the code, but there's no comment why, which is a good idea. Our guys from the performance team loved that. They said, okay, that if you want to put a commit, maybe first think about it and explain it. Maybe when you will be thinking about it, we will say, no, I don't need it. That can help. So that's the third thing, that good example where you really can use commit, and they can be very, very, very useful. So, short demo about comments. Let me quickly open my comments and go here. Don't save this project. And I have a bit of code. So quickly, I have one to-do comment here. Let me just close this file. And here I have to-do tree, and I can see this to-do here. So if you have a lot of to-dos, a lot of tasks still to do, you can find them here. And as I said, I was playing with code analyzer that was showing the to-dos as a warnings, but it was a very unstable list, and it was hiding some more important warnings because there is a limit of those warnings I can have. So code analyzer in this situation will be very bad, but this extension is a great thing as something that can quickly tell us on the technical level, we are putting some notes. This code is not the best one. I need to refactor before I finish. So that's how I would use those to-dos. So that's the first thing, this one. Second one, I have a commit here. I already have a comment, but let me delete that and save that. I have the linter cop running, so now I have a wording, Commit needs a comment to justify the existent, either a leading or a trailing comment. So you have to put comments here. And it should be proper explanation. So that's not the right one. That's not how you make it silent. But I just wanted to share that you can make it silent by adding a comment. Don't do it this way. Not I need it. It's why I need it. And the last quick thing is those XML comments. So I can press 3 slashes and press enter, and it creates it. As you can see, it's a summary when I can type the description of the function, and I have the parameter. As I said, the problem with it is that if I add a second parameter, it won't be added here automatically. So you usually say, I will do it later, and it later is never. That's what I was doing, and so I stopped using those comments because it wasn't working. Like I said, but let's do a bad example. So that's a bad example, and also that's not adding value, but I can show you the example. How does it work? Let's just save it. And now if I go here and I start typing process says orders, and it's not showing it. But if I hover over it in the here I have this process says order comment here, and over the first parameter, it should, it should start showing me. Okay, it's not showing at this moment, but it should. It happens. So that's how you can create those comments that can help other developers. And what I can do, I can also enable the where I have it, XML documentation. I can enable it, and now I should have command will be I have ALDoc export documentation. I can export as PDF, or I can export as MD file. I can select it, and it will run, and it will create the doc folder. So export documentation. It runs, and it created documentation folder. And if I preview, I have some have a documentation for those code units, and it also took the descriptions that I put in the XML comments. Yeah, so it combines the comments together with the object description. So that's how we can use it. But as I said, it makes sense if you're going to add a value. If you're just going to be, if your idea is just to have a comment separator, doesn't make any sense. Okay. So yeah, a few last things before we finish. A bit about formatting. So when we are writing code, we are writing not only code that we run, but something that other people will be reading. And our brain works in a way that one part reads the text and another tries to graphically understand the structure. Fortunately, in AL, we have automatic indentation, automatic formatting, so that's no longer the problem. But still, you can have a lot of noise, yeah? A lot of too much comments, a lot of empty spaces, maybe wrong casing of the names. So it would be good also to make sure that it's a bit nicer. Yeah? It's easier to read. We don't have this situation where half of our brains that reads the text thinks that it works this way, and that part of our brain that analyzes the overview of it from a big distance thinks that it's something completely different, because then you have to focus to really understand what's happening. If those both things are suggesting the same, it's much easier to read it. So, what we can do? One of the things is that you can sort variables. Maybe you want to sort procedures. I don't think that's a good idea, but you can, if you prefer. You can sort properties. That's probably fine. With procedure, I will be careful because I prefer to go down. We have the most generic procedure at the top and the procedures that one calls at the bottom. Yeah? So you cannot sort them by name. It's rather, I can start reading from the top the code unit, and then I can stop at some level because I don't have to go deeper. So I think it really helps you. You can think about regions, but the regions is something, some people complain about regions that it helps create God objects because you are hiding complexity. You just can fold everything, and yes, you have code unit that has 500 screens, but all of them are folded and grouped together. Maybe if you're doing that, maybe we should have code unit per each of those regions. So Microsoft Code Coop can detect sorting issues with variables. So it has a rule that can go and you should be sorting by data type. If you like it, that's fine. If you don't like it, turn it off. It's up to you. And I have a few commands and on-save actions that can, for example, sort variables when you're saving your file. So you don't have to care about it. You don't have to run anything. You make it a default settings for everybody in the project. Then when they are saving it, the result is exactly the same. That's why I said earlier that put the settings together, keep them together with projects. So everybody, when they are saving, the result is the same. Not that different people are saving the same file, and it's constantly completely different because they are sorting differently. And I have a few commands that you can run also that will remove empty lines or remove empty triggers or empty subscribers. And also there is a command that can help fix the case of the casing of the command. So of the statement. So let's just quickly go to the demo and open a folder. Just go to formatting quickly and quick formatting examples. Quick example, I can have, a lot of spaces, for example. Yeah. So sometimes people are putting a lot of that stuff, and then you're seeing it. It's hard to read. It's hard to see what's there. So. So what I can do? I can run a command. Sorry, not the overview. I can run a command. empty lines, yeah? Just from the current editor. And it's a bit better. I can also, if I have a trigger like here, or if I have subscribers but without any code, I can also run another command. Remove empty triggers, and it also removes empty subscribers from the active editor. Sorry, I need to save it. And let's run it again. And move empty triggers from the active editor. And it asks me if I want to remove triggers, if I want to remove subscribers, and if I want to ignore comments inside. Because sometimes you may have something that is completely empty, but there is a comment inside. But there was that there was a case where system BC was behaving differently if you had empty subscriber and if you had no subscribers. I don't remember the case, so just David Fieldhoff mentioned it to me. So that should not be here. So that's what you can do. So let's just remove it. Empty triggers from the active editor, and let's run it. It's gone. Yeah. So we don't have it. Yeah. Trigger is gone. And the last thing for this subject is bad looking code unit. Yeah. So bad casing with this size header uppercase. So I can run a command and I can fix identifiers and keyword case in this editor. I can run it, and it runs. And now I don't longer have uppercase. I have proper size header, and here are the names. It clears it. So that's the formatting. There are also, if you want to use something on safe, you can go to the settings, and in the safe there is a command al code actions on safe, and you can, for example, have sort properties or sort variables, and each time you save it, it will reorder your variables or all the properties in this case. Okay, so let's go quickly here. And one of the last things here, something about code analyzers. Last few minutes. So we have a code analyzers from Microsoft. We have the community code analyzers from Stefan, Business Central Intercop. That's the VS Code extensions that install another code analyzer. If you want to create your own, because maybe you have some special rules in the company, you can take a look at my blog. There is an example how to, and then post how to do it. Yeah, the old one, but still valid. And don't enable code analyzers if you don't want to fix the warnings, because you will just populate your problems tab in VS Code with a lot of things, and then something that is important, you may not notice that, and then you will leave some bugs inside the code. And if you don't want, if you want to know what type of rules you have, you can use a command from my extension, show code analyze the rules. That will display you every available rule. Maybe you want to, maybe you have a discussion inside the company which rules we want to disable. So you can go there, create a list, and then talk and decide. Okay, this one will go. And also how we can disable some warnings. There are a few ways. The worst one, in my opinion, is suppress warnings in app.json. And in my opinion, it's the wrong one, because there is suppress warning reasons property where you specify comma-separated list of codes of those exceptions, but there is no place to explain why. And because I'm talking today about readability, that's not readable. Yeah? You open it and you're thinking, why they did that? Yeah? What was the reason? I have no idea. So that's probably not the place. Yeah. So there are rule set files which are better because there is justification property, and you can expect, disable this rule. So now I know why, and now we can have a discussion. Yeah, I can take a look at it. I don't think that. Okay, you explain why, but I don't think that that's enough. Yeah? Maybe I don't agree, or maybe that's fine. And you can use pragma warning disable or restore if you want to have just one exception in a single file. You may want to follow the rule, but sometimes there are special cases, so we can do it this way. There is a code action from AL Toolbox. Then you have a warnings. You can then use surround with pragma, and it will add disable and enable around the warning quickly. You don't have to type it yourself. And I was also trying to do some improvements again last weekend when I was thinking, because the problem is you see pragma, you see the code, and you don't know what it is. So again, you see they disable something, but this is AA00 or something. What is that? So I just added the hover functionality to be able to see the code, or a description of the rule, and also find all references on the rule ID, because you may be interested, okay, what are other places where they disable this rule? And the last thing, avoid overreading safeties. If you're developing for SaaS and you know that functionality will be disabled in 6 months, you don't want to use it. So, and in rule sets, you can disable compiler warnings, and that is a compiler warning that this functionality is marked for removal. Maybe that's the moment when you should know about it and talk with your project manager or consultants. You're suggesting functionality that will be gone in half a year. We should not go this way. So be careful with that one. I mean, if there is explanation that there is a valid business reason, fine, but it should be in the rule set. It's not, we disable it because that's too much to work. That doesn't explain why, and it's very dangerous. Show demo. We still have 9 minutes and 30 seconds, so show demo, and then I will ask for questions. So, quick demo. Code analyzers. I don't want to save it. I'm here. So quickly, we have lintercop. It's installed. I have it installed here. The nice thing about it, let's wait until it activates. So there is a button from the lintercop which allows you quickly to turn on and off analyzers. So all standard ones, and Business Central lintercop is also here. It adds itself automatically if you tick this box, and it's in the settings. And it shows some warnings. So, so what we can do? I have a warning that variable size header is used in on increase prices function, and I have a bulb here coming from AL Toolbox, and I can select surround this error, this warning with pragma. I can click it, and you see it's surrounded, so it should disappear. But there is another problem, so it has a few more. Yeah. So now, but this rule is gone. Yeah, this AA137 is gone. It still complains about something else. Doesn't matter. What I can do, I can hover. Now I know what it is. Do not declare variables that are unused. Yeah, so without it, I don't know what is happening here. Yeah, that will be order. So yeah, so another warning. So yeah, so that's the thing, that the pragma that can also right-click here and just go to find all references, and I can see where it's in every file when this single rule is enabled. So I can analyze if people are not disabling this rule too frequently in the solution. And what else you can do? I just want to show you that we have obviously app.json and we have suppress warnings. So I can do the LC00150 here. And obviously, I have no idea what it is, yeah? And I have no idea why. So I added also, I was trying to do some experiments, and I added hover during the weekend here, so at least I can see what they disabled. And the last thing where you can do it is the rule set. So which is, there is a snippet. Yeah, and I can have a rule, so I can do again AA0021. 21. I have justification again. When I was doing experiments during the weekend, which will be released soon, I also added the hover here. I just need to save it. Is it working? Not really. It's not listening. Let's select any other one. And no. Okay. Doesn't like me, but it should be, or there will be hover also here, so you can you can do it this way. You can check what is there and check the justification. So yeah, so that's the those are the colonizers. That's what you can do with it. Last thing, last 30 seconds. There are some commands that you can use to clean your extension. Some of them I was showing, like removing empty lines, sorting order, sorting procedures, sorting variables. There is also code cleanup command that you can use when you can specify in the settings which commands you would like to run to clean the code, and you can run it at the end of development. And that's it. I'm not going to do it. Here is a list of extensions that I was showing. And the last 5 minutes, questions. Okay. And the shirt. Okay, first.
Yeah, thanks, guy. So you showed the function to find duplicates.
Yes.
And where you have a parameter that finds by lines. Do you have this, so it finds duplicates for the code unit, or finds duplicates for exact function, or
just
it only runs?
Just a function and just a piece of code. It's not searching for a whole code unit, just on a function level. It's not going higher.
Okay, but does it search for the function that you defined, or is it searching for the whole project and it finds every duplicate that there is?
It searches everywhere for the whole project.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other? Okay. Let me check this one.
Yeah, this is actually no question. I think the reason why the local variable creation failed was that you didn't have the var section in the procedure.
But
So
first shirt and then.
So you had the procedure, but you didn't have the var section up below it. So the wizard didn't find the var, so it couldn't add the variable to the procedure.
In the duplicate?
No. The
creation of the local variable.
yeah.
Yeah. Probably that was probably the case. Okay. And another one.
You showed a lot of tools for Visual Studio for AL.
Yes.
Do you know if there is something the same but for CL? Extensions for Visual Studio, but for CL?
Not really. I was doing some experiments with CAL in the past for a bit newer Dynamics nav, the one that has Visual Studio Editor. When Microsoft took it, they took also part of Visual Studio Editor extensibility. So there is a possibility to extend it at the code level. You can get access, for example, to the local or global variables, but there's nothing like that. I mean, you can go to my GitHub. There is an example, small DLL that you can project compile DLL. You put it into the folder inside the RTC client, and it adds in snippets to IntelliSense a few things. But if you want something, you can take that source code and develop something yourself. But it's only for code. It only sits there, nothing else. You cannot integrate with any other functionality of classic dev environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can develop something yourself if you want. Anybody? Okay.
Thank you. Is there a reason why you are disabling the AL72 that variable names should be suffixed with types? Because your extension is, when you showed the example, the sales header is called sales header and not sales header rec.
I mean, it's fine for me. I prefer full sales header. I'm not putting rec. It's just a name of.
But it's a code cop rule.
I think that it was not checking that.
72. What?
It's just information. It's not warning.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
still information. Yeah. So.
Okay.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
Anybody else? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Here. Oh, one more person. It's probably went too far. You know, there are lights that you just straight into our faces, so it's hard to
So
see.
while we're talking about code clean, you know, since I'm wondering what you think about passing a record to a procedure when you need only a couple of fields. Because in Microsoft code, there are sometimes they pass only the fields they need, sometimes the records, and when is it better, one or the other? Do you have any opinion? Or
I don't have opinion here. It's up to you what you prefer. It's if you pass the record, the list of is shorter. There is one of the patterns that the record you should create a record and put some with multiple fields that you will pass together. But if you prefer to pass 5 parameters, fine. Yeah. I mean, if you want to pass 20, that probably will look very bad. So I would put some limit and start thinking what to do if I have more. In other languages, yeah, we can create a class, hide everything inside. But here you can only use record, which you are limited to the size of the field in the record. Yeah. So sometimes I don't want to use record because I have longer strings. But it's up to you. Yeah, I would. Okay. Yeah, but that's the pattern. So it's suggested to use record. Yeah, somewhere in AL. I think that it's still in the AL guidelines, but that's something we'll have to check.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, nobody else? No?